Just wondering, maybe it's better to go without glasses. Can you see me clearly?
Wow. I can see you very clearly.
Does
Welcome,
it
everyone.
matter?
I see you. I see you. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. I have a couple of participants that have just joined us. Welcome. As you join us, as usual, for those of you who are not first timers, just to check to make sure that you can hear us clearly, please type in your name, where you're logging in from, so that we know. Use the chat box, and also just gives you some practice on using the chat box. You can send to all. So your name and where you're dialing in from, or logging in from, so rather. All right. You can. Hi, Sade. Welcome. The Marylanders are here. Anyone else? I need to know that you can hear me. So let me, I don't want to assume that you can't hear me. All right. Hi, Debola. Welcome again. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us from Virginia, the DC area. We're taking over. Last time it was the UK that was taking over. Now, all right, awesome. Thank you so much for confirming that you can hear us clearly. Again, we just want to welcome you to this session today. We have a lot to cover, and since we have a quorum, we'll go ahead and start. All right, welcome officially to February's EPR Women's Network webinar, our monthly webinar, where I am particularly super excited to have you all on board today and to join us. This wouldn't be happening if we don't have you here, but I'm excited specifically for two main reasons. The first one, of course, is about our topic, because this topic is something that, you know, it's kind of a new concept to me, and I'm looking forward to learning so much about this today from all of us, you know, specifically, of course, our guest speaker for today. I think this is very critical as we move to the next level in our careers, in our businesses, as we move into the manifestation of the vision, the goals, the dreams that we have. This is very critical, our relationships. So this is, I'm super excited. I'm looking forward. I'm all ears. Secondly, I am very excited about our speaker today. You know, she is, you know, it's interesting. I want to call her the guest speaker, but it's kind of a tough one because she is the one that God gave the vision for this, everything that we've been doing here, you know, through EPR in general. And so she is, God placed the vision in her heart, even when she didn't even know what it was. And she has carried it over the years. And, you know, I've also, aside from that, she is someone that I have seen live this concept to the extent that I understand it out. Whether, you know, she would agree with me fully or not, I have seen her navigate her roles and leverage relationships on so many levels. She's an entrepreneur at heart. If you really look closely, you have a business idea, just go talk to her about it. And I started there for a reason. She's a minister of God, an ordained pastor. She is you know, she's a professional in the corporate world, and she's navigating that very successfully by the grace of God. More importantly, she's a wife. You know, and I'm sure for those of you who've known her, you've seen her operate in that realm. She is a mother, and I just see her juggling all of those in so many. So I have to believe that she has some personal board of directors that she has been leveraging all this while I've seen her navigate that. So I mentioned this so much, more so to just express how much I feel like, you know, as we learn today, just know that you're going to pick up something not only from her, but even to dig into your own life to kind of see how you've manifested that over time. And so, without further ado, I just want to welcome our guest speaker for today, and say thank you so much for joining us. If we were in a room physically, I would say give her a round of applause and just
Oh.
celebrate her. But you can do it virtually. And so we'll start delving into the topic very quickly. And our style today is going to be a little bit different from what we've had before. I'm going to kick off by just, giving a little bit of background, and also I'll be asking some pointed questions along the way, but she'll do most of the talking. As we go along, as usual, we will use our chat functionality to ask questions. We will give you some time to ask those questions towards the end, during the second half of the session. But as you think about questions, feel free to type it in the chat box. And at that time, we'll also give an opportunity to ask, and unmute yourselves at the time, and we'll see how that goes. We want this to be very interactive today and everything, but we also want to balance it with making sure that you get the content and the richness of the information that's going to be shared. So going back to our topic, when you think about a personal board of directors, what comes to mind for me, or let me say board of directors? I'm sure you've heard of that concept in so many avenues, so to say, in the corporate world and everything. And for me personally, the way I think about it, and I have the privilege of working with one of my direct boss works very closely with the board of directors for the organization that I work with, and it's a huge corporation. And I see how important those board of directors are. So if you think of a nonprofit organization, whatever it is, for you to set up any business, you need to strategically select the individuals that are going to be speaking into, advising, setting the course for, and influencing the direction in which the organization goes. In fact, when critical decisions are being made about any organization, the board of directors, they're in the know, they have the scoop, they're advising. In fact, many times they need to vote on that critical decision. So when you hear something on the news, a new CEO or the pay of somebody, trust me, the board of directors, they knew about it months ago. They were noodling on it. They were sitting in a room and thinking through what that looks like. So when we bring it back to, that's an organization. As we look at it today, the thing that the concept that, we need to connect right now is, what does that mean with regards to you as an individual? You are the corporation in this picture. And our speaker today is going to be delving deep into, how we connect those dots. So my question for you, as we fondly know, our speaker, as PN, so you see me refer to her as PN as we go along. That's her lovely name for her. To just say, hey, do you, how do I, when I think of this, how do I connect that board of directors concept to me as an individual?
Thank you so much. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And maybe I should use that to maybe segue into the first slide and use that to actually, do an opening. And thank you very much. I think for me, I was actually quite excited because the EPR Women's Network is an area that I'm not really passionate about. I think, Kim, you've done a fantastic job. This aspect of the organization and what we do. So I actually am quite excited to be one of the people that will be speaking. I know you have a series of topics for each month, so I'm quite excited about this month. Hello, ladies. Glad to be here. And as just following up on what we just said, I'd like to link it to a concept that came into my heart a few years ago and really shaped and reformed the way I started to do things. This was about maybe 7 years ago. I had an opportunity. I was in a very reflective mode where I was at that point, just sensing what's the next step. And I felt that, there was so many things in my heart I was doing, but I needed to find a very cohesive way of looking at everything. And in the past, I would look at everything individually in silos as different things I'm doing or different projects I'm doing. And during this particular period, I was able to step back and see all of the things in my life as a reflection of me, Inc. So it completely changed the way I started to see things. And while I'm not there and I continue to work on that view, I started using this concept, and I use this concept a lot when I'm interacting with women or if I'm mentoring anybody. We start off with me Inc. So I am Adenike Israbolarinwa Inc. And from there, I prayerfully see my life as one that has different aspects to it, the way you look at a corporation. So a lot of, depending on what sort of industry or what sort of corporation, profit or non-profit, everybody must be able to define at the core who they are and what their business is about. So what is their mission? So there's certain corporate things that we start to think about when we think of companies. And I think when we start to look at ourselves, our lives, where we've come from, what we want to do and what we want our legacy to be. When I start to look at it, and I like this particular picture because it's like you're actually looking through the glasses, and sometimes we're doing so many things that can be blurry, but in a self-awareness, prayerful, spirit-guided sort of lens and glasses, and we ask ourselves certain questions, it helps us over a period of time to plan and to chart where we need to go. So there are fundamental questions that I'm sure most of us have asked ourselves at different times in life, and we continue to do that, especially now at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of a new decade, as we begin to think through, what does this decade hold for me? So first of all, I asked the question, who am I? I think this is a very fundamental question that we don't answer one, because like one of the books that a lot of people, gathered so much interest was Michelle Obama's book on becoming. Who am I? Takes different meanings in the different seasons that you're in. But it's important that you can articulate it. Where have I come from? For me, I think it's twofold. Your source in terms of where your life actually comes from, because that gives you a level of perspective. But your history, where are you? What are you a product of? Who are you a product of? What's your family background? What's your pedigree? Who are the people that have been involved in shaping your life to be the woman that you are today? What can I do? Irrespective of what aspect or phase of life that we're in, we all have one form of capability or the other that may have been formed from our knowledge, our training, identification of our skills, jobs that we've done, both important jobs and those we felt weren't important, jobs we did just to make a living compared to maybe what we're doing that we're passionate about. Whatever it is, whatever you can do, we need to bring that into focus when you think of Me Inc. Then where am I going? Everybody, almost all of us, of where we feel our vision should be. And it changes. Our purpose grows. We understand it as we get into certain phases, but we start from somewhere. When you answer all of those questions and you get to where am I going of these, I know, in the past we've done webinars on each of these topics and we keep fleshing them out in different ways. It then brings you to when you are now at this point of where am I going? It then takes us to how. So we're talking about 2020. What am I going to do to get to advance in 2020? Or we think of a decade. This decade, most of us came into this, this year with not just a 2020 view, but a general, what do I want to do over the next 3, 5, 10 years this decade? And then that brings me to, Kemi, your original question, who needs to come along? There are different people that we would meet in life. I believe God created us for relationships. 1, a relationship with himself. 2, a relationship with ourselves. And 3, a relationship with other people. The state and the health of each of those relationships impacts us and our goals and objectives and how we go along. So when I think of Me Inc., I need to think, after I've answered all these questions, who needs to come along on the journey I'm going to? And Kemi said something, who needs to strategically be on the board? So the board are the people that would come either in your personal, professional, corporate life, whatever it is, holistically. So that's why I'm not looking at this from just career. That's when I look at Me Inc., I see myself from a business perspective. I see myself as a family woman. I see myself as a career woman. I see myself as a minister, with a person who feels called to ministry. And for each of those different positions, roles that at part time I tend to walk in, I need to have a set of people that I feel can speak into my life, and I call them my board of directors or my advisors, just like any company needs to have one. Even if they're not formally or informally, we also need to have that for our lives. So that's really, Kevin, what, the drive of what I see, who your personal board of directors, and why it's so critical that we're able to articulate who they are and why we need them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was, one of the things that I picked up from this, many things, but one of the things that stood out to me is this concept of, it could be formal, it could be informal. And, I like you to help us even delve into a little bit more around how even to kind of begin to just think through how to pull all of that together. So I know who I am, or I'm discovering who I am. I know where I'm going, and I'm trying to figure out how I can get there and everything. And I have all these, these things I'm juggling, those relationships I'm juggling. So what the how is what I'm curious about now. How do I now pull all of that together part-time? Wow, I love this picture. I love, we're trying to, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, but I'm sure all of us have a version of this picture going on in our life at different points in time. I need to go to gym. I need to, my baby's crying, is growing, needs my attention. My teenager needs, how do I manage all of that? And how do I bring other people in to help me through that journey?
Yes. It's so funny. One of the things that really stood out for me in last month's session was just this amazing concept about being, living, being authentic in who we are, but also the power of, managing our thoughts, our emotions. And a lot of what was said and what I'll bring it into is what I call the power of self-governance. I realized that as women, as busy corporate professional women, we tend to have to juggle so many things in our lives, even when it seems as if we're not busy, even if we're in between jobs or transitioning life for one reason or the other. A typical woman very quickly would find things that she needs to do, either supporting people, encouraging them. Because life is about relationships. We need to have the right set of relationships in our lives. But on a regular basis, and the pace at which life is right now, there's so much pulling at all of us as women, that I also believe that it's important that we have what I call, it's important that we have what I call a framework for our development. A framework. That's part of what and I'll talk a bit. I know I'm going to give myself a little bit of an example as we go along. And some of the things I've learned along the way, because there's still so much I need to learn and do better. But a framework for self-governance. How do you position yourself to maintain balance? I believe that the ability to which we're able to govern our lives determines a lot of what we're able to achieve. Now, when I say this self-governance, if I step back, this is not a self-governance of you making the final decision in your life as the final authority. And I'll talk a bit more about that as we go along. But it means that we have a responsibility to ensure that we all think through and make certain critical decisions. When it comes to personal governance, let me give maybe 2 or 3 examples. I know because of time. We all know that we have some form of life plan and we all have goals. But you do know, I've learned several times, it's very easily, before you know it, it's December. Another year is going past. And you have all these amazing things you want to do in your life. So it's one thing to have plans and goals, but if you don't put in a governance process that includes, for example, accountability, you will not be able to track your progress. You will not be able to track when you're going off course. In life, we will always have to make decisions. As a mom, I've had to make certain decisions, when it comes to career and children, like most of us may have had to do. I've had to make decisions around our family, where we live per time, what we needed to do, the impact of certain moves that seemingly maybe could impact so many aspects of our lives. I've had to think about the ministry and your need to reach out to people, but at times you need to pull back. What are the things that help you make those decisions? What is the framework that you've set up around your life to make the right governance? Because don't forget, I'm talking about Me Inc. There are things that we need to do, ethical behaviors. One of the most challenging decisions I make in life is not about what's right or what's wrong. It's what's right and what's best. And sometimes those are not always the same. It's being able to reflect, it's being able to have a level of self-awareness where you start to know, I'm not operating the way I should be operating. I'm under stress. I'm making decisions while I'm stressed. What are the systems that we put in our lives to help us do that? I can, if it's okay, I'll just quickly use that to segment this, and you can, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts. Because for each of those, that's why there's a benefit when you start to think of a personal board of directors or advisors, because you can't really have governance. When I think of a board, I think of governance. Part of my role and part of what I started to understand is that this is an area of strength for me. Let me give an example, maybe to make this work a little bit. When I think about, the benefits of having a board of directors, Kemi said something. I was in the process, I felt so strongly that I wanted to step forward in one of the things I'm passionate about. Most of you know I'm passionate about teaching on relationships, and I've been, planning to have my talk show and a lot of those things. And I just want to make this very practical, just to make it so it's very real. Because a lot of people are like, Sidike, you seem to be doing so much. How do you do it? Some I do well, some I don't do very well. And I had to have somebody affirm, it's okay if sometimes you don't do something well. Because mentally, what is impacting me, and I'm pushing to do something that I can do, but I suddenly find that things have changed. Unconsciously, I may be thinking to myself, oh, what will people say? Oh, it will look as if, oh, you started this, you didn't finish it. And sometimes the thought of what people say gets you to push and continue to do certain things, although something from external or even internal has occurred in your life that has caused you to take a step back. And being able to have different people on your board who are not always close to a lot of things you're doing to give you an objective view is very important. So when I look at governing certain things, when I was going to do start of that talk show, I spoke to one of a senior, somebody who is an advisor, and it was one of those conversations that we had. I was up late, probably doing some work, and I called her. It was probably 1:30 a.m. in the UK, so we were about 8:30 p.m. So I was able to grab her, and we hadn't chatted in a while. So we started chatting, what's up with you, this and that. And as I told her, we kept pulling it out, and she kept teasing stuff, asking me questions, saying, okay, what's different about this? What's different about that? And the more she asked questions, the more I was fine-tuning. I was able to articulate what was in my heart. And when I started to articulate what was in my heart, she said, actually, from what you've said, I think you're more passionate about the governance of what you're talking about as opposed to the issue. She just used one word. And it was a light bulb moment for me. It was an aha moment for me. Because she helped me take a step back what I was doing and look at it from a framework perspective. This year, in 2 different experiences, it had been starting off like that, professional work, and even some of the stuff I was doing in ministry. Through separate events, I was brought into an area on my job and also brought into an area in ministry where I had to provide input. And part of the things that stood out at me was we need to set a right framework for how we do our governance. And I just started seeing that while I wear so many hats and I do so many things, I started to find a common thread in the things that I'm doing and my messaging, which is how to develop frameworks and governance to create success in whatever we're doing. And that meant that to a certain extent, some things I needed to do had to change and how I go about doing it. Or having 2 separate people speak to me at 2 separate times from 2 different dimensions, but they ended up saying very similar things, helped me get clarity. So part of the benefits of having a personal board of directors in your life is they help you to see the big picture. sometimes we're so, we can't see the forest for the trees. We're so close to an issue, we're not able to probably have a wider view on what we need to do. Another thing of having a board of directors in your life, and I feel the number one person when we talk about who should be on this board, most of us will know, is they should act as your conscience. And that's where I feel the spiritual part comes in. For me, on my board is the Holy Spirit, the first person on my board. He's really technically the chairman of the board. And I always have to remember to make sure he's in his right place and he has the right final say. I'll talk a bit more about that. So it's important for us to know that, again, also, there are times when you go through crisis in life. And the kind of people that can speak to your life in a crisis situation may not be your best friend, who may be able to speak to your life at a motivation area. So these are the different things we look at when we have to think through who should be on the board. There are lots of benefits. Obviously, we only have so much time that we can look at, but there's some things we should look at. Accountability, who helps you build credibility, who can challenge your performance. These are some of the things that the board of directors should be able to bring to the table of your life. Let me pause and see if, Kemi, if you wanted us to, I know there's some couple of things, and I'll dig deeper, but some of my high-level thoughts and an approach to what I feel, both looking at the benefits, also helps me to think, so if this is a benefit of having a board, who should I be thinking of that should sit on that board?
All right, I would look forward. Thank you so much, Pastor Nikki. The concept of really just making sure that we can. What stood out to me was really sometimes it might not even be what the person is saying, but how the person is able to help you reflect, talk through, think through, and reflect back what you really know. That's when you're working with a coach. That's really what they help you to do. They don't know the answer to all your problems, right? Yes. But they almost like it puts you're forcing yourself into a position where you have to talk through all the craziness, so to say, that's going on through your head, and then they're able to pull it back to just, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I think I'm hearing, and everything. And I love what you said about the Holy Spirit has the final say. You have people, that they'll give their reflections, their perspective on things. At the end of the day, we know where, and I know we know where the final say comes from. And I'll, of course, looking forward to share that as you delve deeper, a little bit deeper. I'd like you to also, help, again, going back to that picture that I like, where you have all these roles and all these things that we're juggling, especially as women and emotional beings as we are, very beautiful. That, as we go through different seasons, I know personally I've evolved from different seasons, and the people that were closest to me 1 year, I'll say, better still, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and that I would talk to more frequently, that I will share things with, I'll bounce. They're not the same people today. As my life has changed and everything. So as we identify who those board of directors are, how do I also manage those changing seasons and changing realities for me as I grow, as my vision grows? And how do I pull all of that together, still maintaining the relationships in the right way?
That is such a great question. I know that preparing for this, you had sort of helped me to have a pretty good idea of the sort of questions you've been asking. So I tried to create slides around that. But before I sort of go deeper into the other slide, I think that's one of the things that keeps evolving, and that's a skill that as women, I believe we have a gift for it, because we also have this gift of intuition, right? Women, we go through different seasons in our life, whether we're single, married. There are certain seasons that the same seasons. A lot of what I would experience from an age perspective, irrespective of what other women are doing, just by virtue of where we are in our lives, the kind of things that's important to all of us in our 40s would be very similar to what's important to us in our 20s, So there's that similarity that just as a woman, we all go through different seasons and impacts. And again, if I go back to one of the things that is very important for me to say is, we go back to me, because me Inc. is you You came into this world by yourself, if you get what I mean. Even if you're a twin or a triplet, you all came out one at a time. They didn't yank 3 people out at the same time, you know. And, you know, we all know that at the point in time, everyone has a different path we need to walk until we meet our maker. So no 2 people have the same journey. That's where I'm going to. And you need to always think for your life, your situation, your family, your wherever you are, what at this point do I need? There will always be a lot of voices, a lot of advice. And so I don't forget, I'll say it now, anything, even when we start to talk about all the different people, types of people that can have on your board, I always say this, they all provide counsel. They all provide advice. You are ultimately the one responsible for making the final decision. And that's why you need the Holy Spirit. That's why you need a deeper insight beyond what everybody can see to help in making that. There are decisions I made in life that I wasn't sure if I was making the right decision, but I went on the basis of trust, core belief, and even when it was the wrong decision, I always say this personally, God always found a way when there was genuine, in certain cases, because all of that is in there, genuinely then, lovingly, but firmly puts you back where you should be. So you learn, and then I don't know how it does it, it still brings all the things out. So when relationships change, I don't think we should agonize over it. But when, and I'll talk about, maybe some of this will come up in a question, so I'll pause and wait for it. But the one thing I'll just say is, you know, nobody asks, do you tell everybody they're on a personal board of directors? That answer will help me with what I'm about to say. When you're then looking at who you're speaking to, it's important to articulate what you want from each person that will be on your board. It's a very candid conversation, but how each conversation takes place is very different. So that as your seasons change and as those relationships are no longer specifically relevant. So for example, there was when I just you know, moved back, you know, to UK and they're working and everything else. The sort of roles and career choices I needed to make, I needed somebody to help mentor me for what I was doing at that point, to understand the lay of the land, to understand how to better bring my skills in a way that can be appreciated in a different environment. However, the benefit I needed from that person, which was very beneficial for about 3 to 4 months, has completely waned now as I gain mastery of that area. And now I'm in a completely different space. The relationship is there because it's always important to maintain relationships, because what's very interesting is who might be on my board today because what I need from them, I may end up in the future being on their board because of what they need from me at a different stage in life. And that's the amazing part of relationships. So we almost always have to look for how to manage those relationships, protect them, and grow them, but understand when your board needs to change as Me Inc. and Me Inc.'s requirements changes. Who do you need to bring in? Sometimes some people they might not be on your board of directors. It doesn't mean they're not in your life, and doesn't mean they're not honored and appreciated, but in this moment, they're not necessarily on your board. And, you know, if it's okay, Kemi, I'll just maybe, if it's okay, just quickly run through a way in which we can look at who should be on our board, right? Yes. I actually like this slide because although, you know, and there's a lot of content, rich content out there. And I know most of us have, you know, professionally, we've all, you know, had some of this, maybe some of these conversations, but I wanted to bring some of what we know and see if we can make it a bit more relevant, a bit more practical. So who's going to make the cut, right? As you develop your personal board of directors, ladies, think about it. I'm sure most of us are thinking about it. Who do you think will sit on the board, you know, of your own personal life? So, you know, I took a grouping that I particularly like, you know, which is purpose and motivation. Who are the people in your life that speak to your purpose? Who are the people in your life that calls out your purpose? Who are the people who motivate you to make a difference, to go after what you believe in? Who are the people who, when you want to run an idea by them, they understand your vision? They understand how you think. They are your sounding board. They are the people that, you know, they can, you know, you can say, if I'm a go-getter, this is another go-getter woman. She understands when I say I want to do this. They can easily say, oh yes, you know what? In fact, you know what you should do? I think tomorrow, don't delay, do this tomorrow. Let me give you a number of somebody you can call. You know, they would immediately start to motivate you when you have a fresh idea. There's some people that when you have a fresh idea, they may not be the first person to speak to when you're still incubating that idea. It's not because they are wrong, but there's some people on the board potentially, and you need them on your board. It's a timing thing to know that I just need a sounding board. It's somebody that, you know, I want to run a couple of ideas through, that when you say to them, you know, there's somebody, for me, my older sister is actually somebody like that. She's so creative that if I say to her, I'm trying to do this, yeah, boom, do. 3 days later, hey, this thing you're telling me about, I even saw this thing. Do you know another thing you can do? Then after all, I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Because she's very rich with a lot of ideas, you know. So that's somebody that, you know, easily motivates you. They know you are, they encourage you, they do it from a very, you know, positive, genuine place. And then you also need to think to yourself, who can challenge you to be a better you? You know, who can give you candid feedback? Sometimes we call those people accountability partners. Who are the people that you can say to them, they can say, so what's up? I did this, I did that. I have one of my sisters, you know, she's like, she calls me Nikita, why now? And you know, so what happened? So what did you say? Oh, you know better. Okay, you know what? And I'm like, I know, but oh, I'm tired. Okay. You know what? Don't worry. Then she'll stay up again. They challenge you, they encourage you, they might tell you, they push you to be better, you know, and they, you know, they genuinely want what's best for you. Those are people that are committed to your personal development. And you find out that some people, sometimes you have more than one person who is doing the same thing. They need people who I call SMEs, subject matter experts, who are knowledgeable in your career, in the industry, people that you should follow, people that you can align with, people that can, you know, that you can possibly speak to on your job, for example, that you may not even know, but you might see them or send them an email, people that you can connect with, people that can give you the knowledge to help improve your capability, people that can sharpen your axe head so that you will not spend a year hitting the same thing. Some people have enough knowledge that they will say 2 things to you and they completely get and position you in the right place. Most of us have heard about this professionally, even in our lives, sponsorship and influence. Who are the people that have influence? In our, we have a weekly prayer meeting under this EPR called EPR Praise. And this month, you know, we've been praying about taking new territories. And there's some specific prayers about, you know, even as you go about finding these people, because for us as women of professional, who are corporate women, we also believe very much that, you know, we're women of the spirit. And so we also have that additional advantage of being able to get an insight into our hearts where people might not be able to give us that direction. But sometimes there are specific people that have influence. We're praying for strategic relationships, people that can sponsor you, people that can mention your name in the right place, people that can call your name in the corridors of power. People that they can say, we're looking for someone who can be on this project. Somebody, do you have anyone on your team who is very focused, developed, and they can put your name there? And that gives you more visibility in another area of the business. We also looked at, you know, you can also look at who can help you create a balanced life. Sometimes that could be your coach, like, you know, who encourages you, who speaks to your mental well-being, who reminds you that you need to take a break, who says, girl, let's go on holiday, let's chill, let's relax, you know, who helps you to learn, grow as a person, who helps you to remember to, you know, put that balance in your life. And finally, very significant one, who is your personal support system? The people that listen to you, the people that, you know, when, you know, most of the time, your family in most cases, they are so significant. You know, the people that, you know, your spouse, trusted friends, you know, people that can, you know, when you've been gone through all sorts of things, can get you back up and running again. So when I look at some key positions and roles, I see this as a way of positioning people. But when I look at the other side of the boardroom, This is, one side of the boardroom. I also look at it like, why this, in this side of the boardroom, people like that I've explained could be, a spouse, a friend, a mentor, your boss at work, a coach, or any of those relationships. But when I go to the other side of the boardroom, because this is you sitting and looking at all the people on your boardroom, I look at other people like a wise person. Who is a wise person that can speak into your life? The Holy Spirit is the first one. Who will he use? Who are the people that that they have what I call sound judgment? When you speak to them, they just have this ability to think about other aspects of what you are saying that you may not have thought about, or what could be impacting it. You can have a great idea. A wise person will say, how would this impact that? And all of a sudden you're like, I never looked at it like that. Another person that you need on the other side. So it could be the people on the right, but this is more a different way. That's why I used, a way of thinking. Who is a clarifier? Like I said, who are the people that when you tell the things in your heart, things you want to do for your children, I'm trying to, I need to make a decision. I don't know if I should remove my child from this school that is good in name, but my child is not happy. My child is not happy. Should I be so bothered about whether it's public or private, or should I look at the mental, emotional health of the child, which at the end of the day is important beyond just education? Who can help you ask the questions to clarify the decisions you want to make in your life? Who can connect you? On your board, you need to have someone that's people. Let's keep it real. You need in your life someone that can connect you to somebody else. I have a pastor that if I want to do certain things, I will run some things by him because he will know somebody. I'll say, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't know if you know anybody, let me give you this person's number. Tell them I sent you. You know what? I'll send them a message and tell them they should expect your call. Boom. There are people like that you need in your life that and if we don't have, remember we said, let's also look at who we don't have, because we'll round up with what we can do to get those. Who are the challengers? Remember when I said, sometimes you have a new, fresh idea. Yes, it's good you can share it with people who can encourage you, motivate you. But do you have someone who can challenge you to say, listen, I think it's a great idea, but what about this other idea you had? How will this link to it? Because if not, you can easily find yourself doing two separate things. Who will speak truth to you? Who will not sugarcoat it? Who would say, sounds good, but I don't think it's what you should be doing right now because boom, boom, boom. And I honestly think you need this additional thing and I don't think you have it yet. I think you should wait till you have it before you go on. They may not sound as sweet and nice as you want, but they're able to cut through some things and get you to where you need to get to. And finally, what I call a reverse mentor. And I'll break this out more a little bit when I just talk on the other slide. A reverse mentor is somebody who can sit on the right side as someone you are mentoring, because sometimes your own personal development, you grow when you are mentoring. One of the areas that my husband and I we've grown in our marriage is when we mentor young couples, because sometimes they come in. I've seen couples come in and we're counseling them and they're so happy and they go, I'm like, are we still as excited about each other? See, these people are really excited about each other. Are we going still? They motivate us. Then we also see some couples that come in and they are just pulling their hair out about the things they need to deal with, and it helps us appreciate where we have come from and having to go through that season and going past it so we can encourage them. Sometimes that's reverse mentoring. In the process of mentoring other people, they actually are helping you to develop or to see things a different way, or to become better in how you're doing things. So these are there are other things that people can consider, but I believe very widely, these are the sort of people that need to be in your lifetime, that speak to it at different areas, and they will come in different forms, shapes, and sizes. And I think my time has been overspent, so let me just use 2 minutes on the last slide so I can pass it on to Kemi. So if I can just quickly run through this, some key reminders. When it comes to looking at who should be on your board, I love this image because the person looking at it with a magnifying glass, you might not be able to see it. Actually, it's supposed to be right now, it looks white, but ideally they should be gold or silver coins, right? Our relationships matter. They are very important. This concept of your personal board of directors makes a huge difference. So some things that I would suggest when you're looking for who should be on the board, let's make it organic. Let's create a climate of trust respect. I'll talk about this a bit more. Candor, when we're looking for who should be on our board, we must make sure that, we engage consistently, make sure there's diversity. And that's where that reverse mentoring came through. There's one of the young ladies in EPR that she sees me as a mentor of some sort, but there's some things that she's doing that the way she's doing it is so different. I'm starting to learn from her as well. So having a diverse set of people on your board, not just women, not just men, not just older, not just younger, not just a Black ethnic minority, but other ethnic minorities, people that, come from different backgrounds, different socio-economic backgrounds, will give you a very good idea of different things that we need to do. And then finally, seek a reciprocity when you're picking people on your board. Don't just look at what can you get. Always think to myself, what can I give to my board members? What value can I bring to the people who are on my board to advise me? How can I be, a blessing to them? So those are, I know that I tried to really run through, but Kemi, I think I was able to get through most of what I wanted to say.
Wow, thank you so much. I know we're rushing for time. We want to make sure that we pack as much in this as much as possible, but wow. That was loaded. There's so many things going on in my head, but I'm just going to pause because we have a couple of questions that came in, and I think I saw your hand being raised. But what I'll do, if you don't mind, is I will read the 2 questions, and so that you can just take them all at once, so I don't have to break in between. So the first one is, how do you identify a coach? And then the second one is an interesting one, which I think you touched on it a little bit, but you might be able to go deeper. I've seen things held up to an extreme degree, for example, new projects, etc., because of your board of directors, and they couldn't agree on the way forward. And there might be really good ideas that have been held up this way. How do you prevent this from happening? Sometimes the board is the problem. Is it because there are too many people on the board, or we have the wrong people on the board?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. So first of all, I guess I'll start off with, how do you identify a coach? And if we look at it, it's one of those ones that sometimes it's not always organic. Sometimes you just need to look for who's the right person. And at times, because coaching is an industry in and of itself. What I would say is, first of all, start off with Me Inc. And do a quick assessment, a self-assessment of what do you need a coach for? So we need to be able to ask our questions. There are different types of coaches. I do some relationship coaching at times, because some of what I do is not always counseling. Sometimes it's just coaching young couples who are trying to get married, for example. It's brief, it's short. They're going through a season. They need to start to, mostly those who, for example, have just gotten married and need to develop some core skills and start to make that adjustment. So a coach comes in, most times it's temporary. It's clear what the defined outcomes are. So you need to know, what area do I want to be coached in? I want to be able to develop my my sales pitch, how I pitch, how I communicate, and how I present myself, give in a particular industry. I would say that in that situation, if you want to identify a good coach, you do some research, because there are a few things that have been picked up when you looked at Me Inc. You didn't look at it just, you looked at first, what am I trying to achieve? I want to grow my business. Second of all, what does my business do? Third, who is my target audience? Fourth, what is my industry? For each of those, you then begin the search. A person who can coach you, they don't necessarily need to be in that industry, but it's very beneficial because there are some skills they can give to you, irrespective of whatever you're trying to do, especially when it comes to being articulate or being able to communicate. But sometimes being able to now add the industry element when you look for a coach actually helps the fact that they then understand what potential person needs to hear, and how you weave a certain speech and language into your presentation that enables you capture the people that you need to speak to. So those are some of the things that, very high level, that you can start to think about when it comes to how do I identify a coach, starting with Me Inc. What is your end goal? What is the outcome? Where do you want to be? I always say, what does good look like? That helps you also articulate. And like I said, when you're looking for a coach, I say to myself, whoever you want on your board, in a way, you're also interviewing them. just because someone is good doesn't mean organically they'll be good for you. So it also has to be somebody that you can engage with, that can understand some of your peculiarities, and you can still get the benefits of what you need from them. And sometimes you also need to forget some things about a coach is not quote unquote your friend. They're there to help you to get certain things done. So it's managing those expectations. Now we can deep dive in some of those conversations, from a network perspective, or later on some of our other calls, but I think that'll be helpful. The second question I think is very related more in a corporate environment. The beauty of when you're looking for your personal board of directors is you don't necessarily have to bring every one of them on the same page. Now there's some people that, sit on what I call my board. Right now I have some open slots I know I need to fill. There's some people have said, oh, once in a year, bring everybody who sits on your board of directors. I don't think so, because there are certain people who sit on my board that they're very professional people that I'd like them to speak to certain areas of my career that would not be the right environment for me to bring them in with other people. And not everybody needs to know they're on your board for them to serve. Don't need to know that they are on, how do I put it? They don't need to know everybody on your board, but some people can know, oh, I'm being seen from this perspective, but some other people, to seem very strange to them. So I don't necessarily feel you have to tell everybody they're on your personal board of directors for you to be able to relate and get the best out of them. However, when it comes to a corporate board, this is where the corporate board's governance system is in place. The board is the problem when you don't have the right governance in place, when you don't have a clear-cut way in which decisions need to be made, in which who determines quorum. Now, there could be very valid things that could hold certain things forward, but it's also a decision-making process. At what point, and this is from corporate, there's been a corporate aspect, you should have a small board or a large board. It works for different organizations at different people. But when you have the wrong people on your board, there needs to be a management system in place to remove them and bring the right people on your board. We see it in the collapse of companies. We see it in the likes of Enrons. We see it in those organizations where the board members, after a while, became ineffective because the culture was bad and they were not able to function. If I start going to culture and the board will be different, but hopefully that will be able to help with some of those questions. Okay, I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, if you have additional questions, feel free to either type in chat or raise your hand. I'm just checking to just see if we have anybody who has raised their hand, and I don't think that I saw one earlier, here's one that one thing I wanted to just highlight something, in additional, just a little spin that, I know that I've personally experienced, and it's almost like goes back to that informal, one of those informal relationships where, you touch on it a little bit. That's that person who you can just go and breathe, cry behind closed doors, scream. I call them, in the corporate world in which I live in, they call them scream buddies. A scream buddy. It's somebody that, of course you don't want to get emotional, because we women, we're very emotional, right? And sometimes we just feel like we need to just exhale and everything. Finding that person who, somebody on your board who may not even, again, doesn't have to be formal as was shared earlier, somebody that you can go into their office, if it's in the workplace, close the door and say, can we talk? And somebody frustrated you that day, your boss frustrated you or whatever, and the person will let you be you. And it goes back to that being authentic, and being somebody that allowed you to be authentic. So, but when you come out with your big girl shoes. Nobody knows you just finished crying. The person will give you a box of tissue to cry and move on, and everything. And I think those, to me, for having that, and when I've not had that, sometimes it's been very frustrating where, and it could be even outside where it's, pick up the phone, take a walk or whatever. And so just something to think about. I think we have somebody who has raised their hand. So this is Esther. I'm going to allow you to speak. So give me 1 second. All right, Esther, I'm going to mute you. I think you might need to unmute yourself because I'm allowing you to talk right now. In the meantime, so try to unmute yourself on your side. Okay, and then Titi also, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you, Kemi.
I think we hear some feedback coming in. Okay. I'm hearing some music, if you don't mind. If you have music in the background, can you lower it a little bit? Okay.
It's like those juggling hat music.
I know. All right.
So maybe while we're waiting, if some of people haven't, I wanted to just speak to, so while we're waiting, Kemi, if it's okay with you, I was just like, I rush through this part that I think is very important. Is anyone ready to ask the question?
Let me see. Titi, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Go ahead. Good.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Nike. This has been such a great conversation so far. My question really is related to managing expectations, and it's a little, maybe there are two sides to it. So one thought is, you're trying to create your personal board of directors. Sometimes you might think that there's certain individuals that should be on there, and it's a little bit counterproductive because you're just doing what is expected of you. Naturally you think, oh, this person should be on my board, that person I should be relating to because I should, not necessarily because you're looking at things critically. So how do you help yourself out of that? That's one aspect of the expectation. The other aspect is really setting a good pace for yourself. How long does it take? And I like the fact that you mentioned that there's still some spots on that board that, on your own board that you need to fill. I'm thinking of these different roles and I'm scratching my head thinking like, who in my life, fits into each of those roles. Maybe some might be wearing multiple hats on that same board, like being a clarifier and an encourager at the same time. So like, how do we charter that territory? Those are the two sides to managing expectations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a fantastic question. And let me try and answer it. I hope I'm able to capture the two sides effectively. I think one of the things that struck me, I know this story is out there. One of the first, Mrs. Awushika's being the first female board of directors for a large bank, First Bank, an indigenous bank in Nigeria. She talks a lot about the story, and she's also shared this very, very personal place that we were in with us. And one of the things that stood out to me was the process when she said before she was invited to be on the very first board, which was on the board of Cadbury, she talked about the fact that first, her name had been nominated by somebody she didn't even know. Second, she said they had done their research on her for a couple of months and interviewed different people and businesses that she had worked with very quietly before she knew. I don't think even the people knew what it was about. And then when they came over for the first time, she got a call and they came to see her. She said she was grilled for about 3 hours that day with loads of questions. And then finally, a decision was made to bring her to the board. So I realized that when we talk about, having a personal board of advisors, to your point, Titi, it's something that we do not rush. There should be no pressure whatsoever. There's some, and that's why I say make it organic to a certain extent, make it spiritual, let it flow. Let it be from a place of thinking, praying, reflection. Let it be from a place of studying. Let it be from observing somebody else that might know this person. Now, what you need people on a board to do will determine how much time you potentially give to that sort of research. So in other words, there's some decisions you need to make in the short term, like somebody asked a very good question about coaching, that may take a certain of review for you to bring that coaching from a professional perspective to somebody that you feel would be some form of advisor or some form of mentor, somebody you feel you can share personal details of your life with. You would want to spend more time before opening up and being that vulnerable. So given that different people on your board will serve different purposes and most of the time for a different length of time, I would say that what then becomes critical is first, that you don't rush into any decisions. Second, you ask the chairman of your board, the Holy Spirit, to guide your decision in every way. Third, that you have on your board people that you can have a climate of mutual respect, trust. Nobody must be on your board that doesn't respect you. Nobody must be on your board that thinks they're doing you a favor. That's why I said you must seek reciprocity. As you're speaking to people on your board and you're telling them that this is the value you feel you'd love in their lives to invest, and you immediately think to yourself, and I would love to also give this value. Because if you mentor me, you also get a new perspective and you develop more skills. So that way you're able to build mutual respect and people can see what's in it for them. And then agreeing to a level of candor, a level of openness, a level of honesty in those relationships, I think are some of the things that are very important. And if I can just add one more thing to that is have a plan. One of the things I said to myself is there's going to be a plan. I'm in a new role. Yes, there's obviously somebody, my senior person who I feel I'd like some form of mentoring, but I want to create a plan in this role to say, I don't know a lot of people within the organization. Who is a real senior stakeholder I'd like to encourage, send an email to or ask to tea or schedule something. So sometimes when you identify the gaps in your board of directors that I really need a connector, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go to? I need to sign up to LinkedIn for a professional, if it's that professional. Do I need to go through my a professional industry body? Do I belong to any one of them? Can I start going for a few networking meetings that would expose me? Can I attend EPR's sessions to find women on the same path that we can build each other up? So when you have a plan, you are more deliberate when you attend events, attend certain things. Like if this is an event that has been made available that some of us can connect on and begin to say, okay, this would be part of the places where I get some level of professional development. So having that plan in place, saying in 3 months or in 4 months or in 5 months, I'm hoping I can fill this role on my board and I'm going to look, research, pray, look again, quietly think, interview before I put anybody on the personal board of my director.
All right. Thank you so much. I know we are at the top of the hour. I know we have one more question. So, Pian, I'm going to read this question, and so if you can just help wrap up with that question in mind, we can just wrap up, and then we'll just do a normal wrap up and just a couple of announcements as we'll be done. Ladies, please bear with us as we go over just a little bit today. I know this has been an amazing session. So very quickly, how do you create a board of directors when you are struggling with your own identity and don't know your direction? Should you drill down with who you are first, or just create a board board with who you are right now, even if you're a bit confused? I think this is a very important question that I think we definitely should address.
That's a beautiful question. Thank you so much, because that question takes us back to the first slide after everything is said and done. I believe very strongly that every woman here, the woman who's, I believe every woman here, woman has designed, crafted, and is very unique, created by God. I believe that you have a purpose in life. You have a vision, an assignment that God has given to you. And the different phases of our lives, I have experienced it when at a point I can lose focus. At a point, I can go through a season where I have to rebrand myself. And sometimes that's the word. Sometimes it looks like I'm struggling with my own identity. But that's why it's good to have a coach. At times, it could be your identity, which takes us to the very first question: who am I? And being able to fashion that. I found out that who am I at a certain season in my life is not who I am today. I have grown. My authentic self actually has remained the same in terms of, my dreams, my passions, but I've been able to better articulate it. I've done a better job linking some dots in my life. I've had a better understanding of both the good and bad and how they can translate. So that could be one of the things that, it's important. But I do think you should not really start to create a board for certain areas if you haven't identified your identity. So let me give an example. if you're assuming whoever asked, the lady actor, if you're a mom and whether you're struggling with your own identity or not, a child needs to know, your child needs what they need, as we all. Children, first of all, teach us one thing about, oh my goodness, you have to learn to be selfless. They don't really care whether you're having a good or a bad day. What they need is what they need. So as a young mom, you may need somebody on your board of advisor who helps you through some challenging moments, who you can sit down for a cup of coffee, who you can unburden to. That doesn't mean that some fundamental issues around your identity has not been fully mapped out yet. But there's an aspect of your life where you can still have somebody speaking and encouraging you. So there are different, what I hear is that you might be struggling with someone on your board to help you think, like Kemi said earlier, to think through the phase, the stage you're in, to help you walk through the path you've come, and to prayerfully support you in understanding who you are today, who you are in Christ, and you being able to answer through the grace of God your own identity. I honestly, if it's okay with you, will make myself available for us to deep dive into this, because I think it's such a rich and a deep question, but it has to be custom made to really, for me to respond directly. So in summary, yes, some areas of our lives, we can also get somebody on the board, but you might not need somebody, if you're struggling with your career, your identity, you might not be able to get the best of anybody sitting on your board in that area, because that particular one might be very connected to that area of your life. So I hope that that's a short answer, but I'll very much be open to us taking it further. And you can, of course, at the end of the call, you can always reach out to me directly and we can set some time up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pian, and Jade. I hope that helped a little bit. And lucky you have a free offer. And I can assure you that it will be a wonderful engagement from personal experience. And so I appreciate God for that. Thank you so much, Pian. This has been an amazing session. We a lot of loaded information, and for everyone, of course, this is always recorded, and we will make the recordings available shortly. If we can go to the next slide very quickly, just for us to wrap up. I think one more icon might be missing here, but first of all, okay, great, thank you. So first of all, we're gonna do a quick poll for feedback. We love our feedback. We need your feedback. I'm gonna run a quick poll, and so it's gonna come up if you can just answer. They're just three quick questions for you to answer with regards to this webinar. We want to know what you think, how you would assess us. This is important for our growth. Secondly, as we do that, if there's anybody who's joining us for the very first time, I see a lot of familiar names, but I wonder if we have at least one or two people who are joining us for the very first time. Can you just indicate in chat so we can welcome you? Any new, ladies who have joined us? Esther is new. Welcome, Esther. Esther, wow. Esther's preparation room. Esther, thank you so much for joining us. We always love our new participants. We hope that you have been blessed today. I know you were trying to ask a question earlier. If you want to send it, when we, you can always reach out to us to ask those questions, and we will be happy to respond to your specific questions. So welcome so much, and thank you for engaging with us today. We do have a free gift for you, and so we'll be reaching out to you. It's a book that's highlighted here called "Who is in Your Personal Boardroom," so you'll be able to delve a little bit deeper into the topic. Just a quick one. For next month, our webinars are every single month by the grace of God, and we invite you all now to come for all the sessions we're going to have till through the end of the year, plus our physical engagements that we'll have and we'll be sharing later. But for next month, it's every third Saturday of the month. Next month, we're going to have one really focused on International Women's Day. As you all know, in the month of March, we have International Women's Day. And so we'll be having a power-packed session where we'll have, some panelists come and share some insights with us in alignment with, what are those things that we need to really think through as we elevate that, the women, from a professional Christian woman's perspective, what are those things that we need to be thinking about on how to really thrive as women, and professionally. So look forward for more information and insight into what that will be, but mark your calendars, March 21st. We will be back to share more with you. Without further ado, I just want to say, PM, thank you so much. Thank you so much for just pouring into us. I know you took this extremely seriously. We enjoyed it. We got a lot from it, and I know we were all blessed by it. And thank you to everyone who has joined us. At this point, we'll just end this session, and wishing you all a wonderful rest of the weekend, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.